What is up, climbers? Are you comfortable with your body? I mean, with your size. Not in the sense of how big your butt is or how much gravity affects your mass, but with your dimensions. Everyone knows that we live in a space full of length, width, and height. But what about beyond that? What about a fourth dimension? Now, to first understand the fourth dimension, we must first understand the dimensions before it. This is because it is extremely difficult, nay impossible, to straight up visualize the fourth dimension. But by using comparisons from 2D to 3D, we can then make assumptions about fourth dimensional space. When you move on a plane with two dimensions, you will never come in contact with another dimension. For example, if this frisbee was two-dimensional, then you could go up and across on this, but you could never go out. This is why we live in three-dimensional space, because all space for us is made up of three directions. You can go out, across, and up.
Science rules.
Additionally, in our space, you can never represent a fourth direction without interfering with another dimension. Out of the three directions we talked about, how would you add another one? You just can't. Science. Now, many people call time the fourth dimension. And while time is a dimension, it is not a dimension in the sense of length, width, and height. We can measure these dimensions with a direction unit, meters or feet, and can move through them forward or backward. With time, we measure with a different unit, seconds, and can only move through it in one direction, forward. Additionally, we can only perceive one instant of the time direction, the now, and our coordinates along the time direction are always increasing. Minute Physics did a great video on this idea a number of years ago. See the card somewhere. But an additional difference between the fourth dimension and time is that we know what direction time is going, and we can't differentiate between height, length, and width.
But of course we know which way length, width, and height are. Height is up, length is that way, and width is that way. Find me.
But we can argue otherwise. There is no defined direction as height. Heck, Earth is hurtling through space right now, so even if we did define a direction as height, it would change every instant and just be useless. Time, on the other hand, is different. It's its own thing. We can differentiate it from the other directions, and as such, it's a different type of direction. There can be more than one time direction if we want, if we're working in 12 dimensions or whatever, but it's still different. It's like having 3 Legos in one mega block. It's a different type of the same thing, except we all know Legos are superior. Back to the fourth dimension then. What it is, where it is, and why on earth this dumb animation keeps coming up when I look up what the fourth dimension looks like. Well, contrary to what you might believe from that animation, fourth dimensional objects don't inherently move. That would be cray-cray. But what that animation is what a shadow of a fourth dimensional object projected on a wall would look like. If you're confused because the animation looks three-dimensional, that's the point. Shadows in the fourth dimension would be three-dimensional. Yes, shadows would have height. Epical. In this demonstration, we will show how the three-dimensional cube shadow can be used to show why the four-dimensional cube shadow looks like that. So, if you look at the shadow here, try not to look at the cube because that'll just confuse you. You can see that we have this part is making a smaller shadow than the back square. So we have a larger square on the door and then a smaller square. And when we turn it, the square that was smaller becomes the larger square. So now this was the back square and this is the front square. That is what is happening with the cube animation when you have the animation, you have the two cubes, will be like right here. You have two cubes, and one cube is rotating like inside of the other. That's the same thing. You have what's going on here. But in this case, the shadow is two-dimensional, and in the fourth dimensional shadow, it's three-dimensional. So this shadow, we have a smaller square. As you rotate, it becomes a larger square, and as you rotate, it becomes the smaller square again.
Mind-blowing.
We can further our understanding of what it would be like to perceive things four-dimensionally by looking at how we, as three-dimensional beings, can perceive things that are two-dimensional. So, for this demonstration, I have this little diagram here. Say this box is a two-dimensional box containing a grape. And this two-dimensional being can't see what's in the box. We can as three-dimensional beings because we can see everything. But this being, no matter how it goes around the box, can't see in the box. Additionally, we can see all around the grape. We can see all aspects of it. So now, if we scale this up into 3 dimensions, I have this box here. It has a nice little You Are My Sunshine player in it. And if in this box we put a grape and we put a lid on it, I, as a 3-dimensional being, can't see in the box. No matter which way I look, I wouldn't be able to see it. But if a being was 4-dimensional, not only could it see into the box, it could see all around the 3-dimensional grape. It could see every single side at the same time. Very cool. But what's the point? Why does anybody need to understand the 4th dimension? Well, let us let Michio Kaku help us with that. Michio Kaku is an American theoretical physicist who, on Closer to the Truth, a YouTube channel, gave a spectacular explanation as to why it is so important to learn about dimensions. He used this analogy to perfectly summarize the importance of dimensions. Think of us as fish in the ocean. To the fish, the ocean is everything there is, and they can't perceive the world outside of the ocean. But if a fisherman catches a fish and carries the fish out of the ocean, the fish can finally understand its place in the world. Additionally, because the ocean contacts the outside world everywhere, that means that the ocean is constantly interacting with that world. But to the fish, they just don't realize it. This is like how the other dimensions interact with our dimension. For us, the 4th dimension, and others, are all around us. But they are either too big or too small for us to come into contact with. Smoke will fill a room, but it won't siphon away eventually into some other direction. That means that the other dimensions are either too tiny for an atom to transition into that dimension, or just hovering just out of reach, kind of like our world with the ocean. In either case, dimensions are still the glue that holds the theories of the universe together. String theory, quantum mechanics, relativity, bicycle pumps, are all areas of science that make sense when they are taken alone. But when put together to create a unified theory of the universe, they just don't fit. Higher dimensions might be the answer. Science is exploring the possibility, and in doing so, it's putting new meaning into the phrase, thinking outside the box. So the next time you aren't satisfied with your dimensions, stop and think about what you really aren't comfortable with. Who knows when or where that rabbit hole will take you. Woo!
Ba ba da ba 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 ba.